The small cafe was quiet that evening. The air smelled faintly of coffee and old wood. A few people were scattered around the room, sipping their drinks and chatting in soft voices. The lighting was warm but dim, casting gentle shadows across the walls. In the corner, an old piano sat, its keys slightly worn but still inviting. No one paid much attention to it. It had been there for years, a part of the cafe's charm, but no one expected much from it. She walked in quietly, carrying a small bag. She wore simple clothes, nothing flashy, just enough to keep warm. Her hair was tied back loosely, and there was a calmness about her that drew little notice. She was known to some as the quiet waitress who sometimes filled in for small events. People rarely thought much about her beyond her everyday role. She smiled politely at a few familiar faces as she passed, setting her bag down near the piano. Tonight was different, though. The cafe owner had asked her to play. Not for a show, not for applause, just a simple tune while a small group of friends enjoyed their evening. Nothing fancy, he had said. Just something soft in the background. She nodded, her hands brushing the worn edges of the piano. She had been playing since she was a child, but she never sought attention. Music had always been personal, a private world where she could speak without words. Still, the thought of playing in front of others made her stomach flutter. She sat down on the bench, fingers hovering above the keys. A few people looked up curiously, but most continued their conversations, expecting a gentle, forgettable melody. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and let her hands fall onto the keys. The first notes were soft, familiar, and simple, just as requested. The melody was light and airy, easy to ignore if someone wasn't paying attention. A few people nodded politely, and the cafe hummed with the quiet background chatter. Her eyes opened slowly, scanning the room. She noticed the man at the corner table looking at her with mild interest. The woman near the window, sipping her tea, barely glancing. She saw the young couple sharing a pastry, barely acknowledging her presence. It felt ordinary, as expected. She allowed herself a small smile and let the music flow naturally, gently pressing the keys, letting each note find its place. The tune was calm, but even in its simplicity, there was a subtle beauty. A few ears perked up, catching the gentle nuance. The slight emotion hidden in each key press. As she continued, the melody began to shift, almost imperceptibly. A small chord here, a slightly unusual rhythm there. Her fingers moved with quiet confidence, finding patterns she hadn't planned but that felt right in the moment. She was no longer just playing a tune. She was expressing something deeper, something personal that had been inside her for years. The room began to change without anyone realizing it. The chatter softened. The clinking of cups slowed. People's heads lifted, and their attention was drawn to the piano. There was a subtle shift in the air, a kind of magnetic pull. She remembered the long nights alone at home, practicing. The times she had played for no one, for nothing but the need to feel alive. The moments when life had been hard, when words weren't enough, and the piano had been her only friend. Her hands remembered each note, each chord, and as she played tonight, she let all of that pour out in tiny, delicate movements. The melody was still simple on the surface, but beneath it, there was something richer. Something that resonated quietly with the hearts of those listening. The man at the corner table leaned forward slightly, intrigued. The woman near the window set her cup down, her eyes focused. The young couple stopped their hushed conversation, their heads turning toward the source of this unexpected attention. Slowly, one by one, people stopped what they were doing and began to really listen. The room became quieter, the soft hum of life fading into the background, leaving only the music. She played a few notes that seemed to float in the air, lingering just long enough to catch each listener off guard. A pause, a breath, and then a soft cascade of keys that felt like a story being told without words. The notes seemed to carry emotion, a mixture of longing, hope, and something bittersweet that no one could name but everyone could feel. Her fingers moved with a natural rhythm, not hurried, but not hesitant. Each movement intentional yet effortless. People exchanged glances, surprised at the depth emerging from what was supposed to be a simple tune. No one expected this. No one anticipated that the quiet waitress could create something that demanded attention. Something that quietly held everyone captive without raising its voice. The music didn't shout. It whispered and persuaded, pulled at emotions, and painted pictures in the minds of those listening. She didn't look at anyone directly. She didn't need to. The music was her voice, and tonight it spoke more than she ever could with words. Memories she hadn't thought about in years surfaced, the small victories, the quiet sadnesses, the tiny moments of joy and despair that had shaped her. Each one found a note, a chord, a pause, and as she played, she felt a strange release. The audience could sense it too. They weren't just hearing a tune. They were feeling the life she had lived, the quiet strength, the hidden depth that had gone unnoticed. A few people were visibly moved. The man at the corner brushed his hand across his face, a small, surprised smile forming. The woman near the window blinked back tears, caught off guard by the emotion carried in the simple melody. Even the young couple sat quietly, holding hands, letting the music fill the space between them. Each note seemed to reach into their memories, stirring something they hadn't expected to feel on such an ordinary evening. She had no plan to impress anyone, no desire to perform. She was simply playing what she felt, letting her hands and heart guide her. And in doing so, she captured the attention of everyone present. The cafe, usually filled with light chatter and soft clinks of cups, now held a quiet reverence. People were no longer eating or talking. They were listening fully, completely, and without judgment. The music had a way of drawing them in, making them forget the outside world for just a few moments. Her fingers began to move faster, lightly, almost playfully, but with precision and grace. The simple melody was evolving, growing richer, more layered. Each chord told a story, each scale a memory. The tune was still gentle enough to blend into the background, yet powerful enough to command attention. It was subtle, but those who truly listened could feel the change, could feel that something remarkable was happening before them. The cafe owner, standing near the back, watched with amazement. He had asked for a small background tune, nothing more. He had expected soft music, maybe a few polite nods from the guests. Instead, he witnessed a quiet transformation, a hidden talent emerging, raw and unpolished, yet breathtaking in its honesty. He could feel the weight of the moment, the rare beauty of a simple performance, turning into something deeply human and unexpectedly profound. She played with her eyes closed, lost in the music, lost in the memories, the emotions, the sheer act of creation. She was not performing. She was living, and the music reflected that. The room became a shared space of emotion, a place where strangers could feel connected through the invisible thread of sound. Every note seemed to resonate differently with each listener, yet all felt the same underlying truth. This was something real, something heartfelt, something they would not forget. A subtle smile crossed her lips as she played a soft, lingering note. She knew the journey had just begun. The tune she had been asked to play, the simple background melody, was no longer simple. It was alive. The music had a voice of its own now, carrying her heart into the room, letting others catch a glimpse of her world. For the first time that evening, she allowed herself to feel fully seen. It's not through words, but through music. The room remained silent, except for the piano. Cups were untouched, conversations forgotten. Every listener leaned in just slightly, as if trying to hold on to the sound before it disappeared. She continued, weaving small, delicate patterns into the melody, hinting at something greater, something they could not yet fully comprehend. The transformation of the tune was subtle, but undeniable. The ordinary evening had shifted into something extraordinary, something that would be remembered long after the last note faded. As the final soft passage of this part of the melody drifted into the air, gentle hush fell over the room. No one moved immediately, as if afraid to break the spell. Eyes met eyes, acknowledging the unexpected depth of what had just been shared. They had come expecting background music, a simple tune to fill the silence. Instead, they had been pulled into an intimate world, a private story shared openly through a piano's keys. She opened her eyes slowly, aware of the room's changed atmosphere. She did not rush. She let the moment linger, letting the quiet speak for itself. For a brief time, everyone present shared a sense of wonder, a subtle understanding that something remarkable had begun. No one applauded yet. The piece had not finished, and the music still carried more to say. But in that quiet pause, a connection had formed, unspoken and profound. The simple tune had become a doorway, and she had stepped through it, inviting everyone else to follow. The soft hush that had settled over the cafe lingered, almost like a held breath waiting to be released. She leaned slightly closer to the piano, her fingers poised above the keys, and then she began again. This time, the music was different. It was no longer a gentle background tune. The notes were fuller, richer, filled with emotion that seemed to come from deep within her soul. Each chord carried weight, and each melody line told a story that words could never capture. The people in the cafe felt the change immediately. The man at the corner table straightened in his chair, unable to look away. The woman by the window clutched her cup tightly, her eyes wide with wonder. Even the young couple, who had come for a casual evening together, sat silently. Leaning slightly forward as if drawn into an invisible thread that connected them all to the piano, she closed her eyes and let the music guide her. The simple tune she had started with now evolved into a masterpiece, a mixture of flowing, cascading notes and sudden sharp bursts that captured surprise and delight. Her fingers danced across the keys, moving with precision yet feeling effortless. There was a power in her playing that no one could ignore, a force that seemed to lift the ordinary cafe into another world entirely. She remembered the long days, when she had been alone with the piano, practicing until her fingers ached and her back grew tired. She remembered nights when she had played for no one, just to feel alive, just to release thoughts and emotions she could not speak aloud. All of those years, all of that hidden talent, were now pouring into this performance, transforming it into something magical. The music swelled and softened in waves, carrying each listener along an emotional journey they hadn't expected. There were moments of quiet reflection, gentle pauses that allowed the heart to catch up, and then sudden bursts of energy that startled and thrilled. It was as if she was telling a story without words, speaking directly to the hearts of everyone in the room. Some felt tears prick their eyes. Others felt a lump in their throat. Overwhelmed by the beauty and depth of what they were hearing, her hands moved faster now, yet she never lost control. Each note was intentional, each chord perfectly placed. There was a tension in the air, a delicate balance between surprise and expectation. She allowed herself to feel every emotion, to let every memory and hope and fear guide her fingers. The room was no longer just a cafe. It was a living, breathing space of shared experience, where strangers became connected by the invisible thread of music. The man at the corner slowly rose to his feet, his expression a mix of astonishment and admiration. He whispered quietly to the woman near the window, who nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. They were not alone. Everyone present felt it. The young couple exchanged a glance, their hands still joined, realizing that this was no ordinary performance. They were witnessing something rare, something personal yet universal, a moment of pure human connection. She allowed herself a brief smile as she noticed the change in the audience. She didn't play to impress them, but the response was undeniable. Her music had become a bridge, connecting her inner world to theirs, creating an unspoken understanding. Every note was a message, every chord a confession, every pause a heartbeat. The melody grew more intricate, weaving threads of past, present, and hope for the future. A subtle rhythm emerged, one that carried both urgency and grace. It built slowly, layer upon layer, as if the music itself was rising, reaching for something higher. Her fingers moved with astonishing speed, yet every note was clear, every chord precise. The melody spiraled, twisted, and expanded, revealing depth and complexity that no one had anticipated from someone who had started with a simple tune. The audience was captivated. They forgot their cups, their conversations, the world outside the cafe. All that mattered was the music, the story unfolding in front of them. Some held their breath, afraid that a single sound might break the spell. Others let themselves be carried, closing their eyes to fully immerse in the experience. The cafe had become a sacred space, a place where time slowed and only the music existed. Her mind drifted back to the moments when she had almost given up, when life had seemed too heavy and her talent unnoticed. She remembered the nights she had played alone, imagining an audience, imagining the possibility that someone might one day hear her soul through the keys. Tonight, that moment had arrived, and she poured every ounce of herself into the piano. Letting it speak everything she had kept hidden, the music reached a peak. Powerful yet tender, complex yet simple, a paradox that held everyone's attention. The notes climbed and fell, dancing with a rhythm that felt alive, almost breathing. Each person in the room felt it differently, yet all felt it together. It was a shared experience, a moment of recognition and awe, a reminder of the beauty that could exist in unexpected places and in unexpected people. She played with an intensity that made the air feel electric. The music was no longer just sound. It was emotion, movement, memory, and hope, all at once. Every person in the cafe was moved in some way. Some had tears running silently down their cheeks. Some had their hands pressed together. Some were simply still, captivated. The young couple held each other tighter, sharing the emotion in silence. The man at the corner leaned back, eyes wide, a small smile spreading across his face. The woman by the window whispered a quiet word to herself, almost a prayer of gratitude for witnessing such a moment. She began to slow the tempo, allowing the music to breathe, to linger on each note, giving time for the emotions to settle and be felt. The final chords came softly, gently, like a whisper carried on the wind. They hung in the air for a moment, then faded, leaving a silence that was almost sacred. No one moved immediately. No one clapped. The cafe seemed to hold its breath, reluctant to break the spell that had been woven. Then slowly one person clapped. Another followed. Soon, the entire room erupted in applause, not just polite, but heartfelt, emotional, and sincere. Some stood, some cheered softly, some wiped tears from their eyes. She sat there quietly, smiling faintly, not expecting the reaction, not needing it. She had played for herself, and that was enough. But the recognition was overwhelming. It was clear that she had touched everyone in the room in a profound way. People approached her afterwards, some with smiles, some with tears, some with words of admiration that seemed too small to describe what they had felt. They asked how she had learned to play like that, where she had hidden her talent, how they had never noticed her brilliance before. She answered softly, humbly, saying that she had always loved music and played because she had to, not for fame or recognition. But inside, she felt a quiet pride, sensed that her gift had finally been shared and understood. The cafe owner looked at her with amazement, shaking his head in disbelief. He had asked for a simple tune, expecting nothing more. Instead, he had witnessed a transformation, a revelation of hidden brilliance. He realized that sometimes extraordinary talent hides in the most ordinary places, waiting for the right moment to shine. Tonight had been that moment. She packed up her small bag slowly, still absorbing the energy of the performance, the emotion of the room. People lingered, reluctant to let go of the magic, reluctant to return to their ordinary lives after such an extraordinary experience. She had not set out to captivate anyone, but she had. She had shared herself through music, and in doing so, she had reminded everyone present that beauty often comes quietly, unexpectedly, and from the most unassuming places. As she walked out into the cool night air, she felt a calm satisfaction. She had played for herself, for her own heart, yet in the process, she had touched countless others. She realized that music was not just a series of notes, but a way to connect, to share, to heal, and to inspire. Tonight had proven that, and she carried that quiet joy with her as she disappeared into the streets, leaving behind the echoes of her masterpiece, which would linger in the hearts of everyone who had listened.